No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 77 of the About to Break podcast. I have so many fun things to share with you today. I want to start right away. First thing I got to do is I got to say a huge shout out to Daniel Will, our newest sponsor, newest producer, newest patron for the podcast. Let's give it up for Daniel Will, everybody. Daniel just signed up $10 a month on Patreon. Thank you, Daniel, for your support. It means a ton. It's so encouraging that you guys would care enough about this podcast to support it financially. Right now, we have 18 different producers of the show. Once we get to 25, we're just a few away. I can't believe I'm saying this, but once we get to 25, we're going to add a bonus episode every week. That's right. We were doing those 5-Minute Mondays, a little encouraging, challenging, vulnerable talk about where I'm at, specifically, and something I'm learning. And we're going to bring those back once we get to 25 producers on the show. So if you want to become a producer, go to abouttobreakpodcast.com, sign up to become a producer. It means so much to us. It also means a ton that we have, get this, folks, 50 5-star reviews on iTunes. That's right. We just reached 50 reviews, and every single one of them is 5 stars. Want to give a shout out to Exoplurb. Exoplurb? I think that's what it says. Exoplurb. Exoplurb says this podcast has it all. Taylor's podcasts, oh my goodness, are simply the best. A very spontaneous and casual style of conversation, yet so many treasures contained within each episode. There are pearls of wisdom here for anyone who is paying attention, and every conversation is enormously entertaining as well. I'm already looking forward to the next episode. Holy cannoli. Guys, those reviews make such a big difference. If you're scrolling through iTunes, thinking about what you want to listen to, and you find that, that makes people more likely to tune in and to join the gang here. So thank you so much to everyone who's given us reviews. So appreciate everyone on Patreon. And this is going to be another great episode. Thank you guys for supporting so I can do this. I absolutely love it. It's a huge joy in my life. So thank you, boys and girls, for supporting. It makes a huge difference. June 26th, we've got our next Low Bar Variety Hour, sponsored by this here podcast, at the Clubhouse Theater in Hollywood. So come on out to the Clubhouse. It's a free show, free parking, free beverages. That is on June 26th at 7 p.m. June 28th through July 1st, I'll be back at the Magic Castle. July 4th, I'll be performing at the Queen Mary. Come celebrate independence with the Queen and I. And then July 7th, 14th, and 21st, we are going to be doing a new thing here in Upland, California called Magic on Tap. We're creating a pop-up magic experience that you heard on one of the shows. I don't know which one, but one of them we talked about the idea of wanting to do this. So we're doing it. And July 7th, I've got Dana Daniels performing. Chipper Lowell's going to be there July 14th. And Nick Paul is going to be there July 21st. Tickets are just $15, and there's a very limited seating capacity. It's a small, intimate venue with some of the best performers working today. If you want tickets to that, go to magicontap.com. And as always, you can get info on all those different dates and know where to meet up for the show, for the different shows. You can get all that info at taylorhughes.com/live. This episode features Charles Peachock. Now, I have to tell you, I've known of Charles for a long time, and I've used a product that he invented in every single one of my shows over the last 6 months, and it's made a huge difference. Charles invented a remote triggering system that plays music, so performers don't have to be at the whim of a sound engineer. They can be ready to roll, and you can discreetly and undetectably control your own music. It's incredible. I sat down with Charles, and we talked about that, and we talked about his life growing up. We talked about being a juggler. We talked about America's Got Talent, where he appeared more than any other juggler in the history of that show. And we talk about launching this company, this audio ape company that has just kind of taken the magic world and the performing world by storm. I definitely encourage you guys to check out Audio Ape if you're interested in controlling your sound. And I also encourage you guys to check out a new product I released called Show Sounds. This is 20 royalty-free tracks that you can use throughout your show. And there's information on that as well as Audio Ape. You can go to abouttobreakpodcast.com/control, or just click the link here in the show notes. And Charles has been so nice that he's given a free case to anyone who orders through the website. So go check that out. But I know you guys are going to love him. Such a great dude. This was so funny. We sat down to record. I was in Florida. He lives in Florida. I came through Orlando. We were going to record on a Saturday. And we got there and we started geeking out so much about performance and sound gear and all this stuff that we spent all our time hanging out. And then we were just exhausted. We were like, hey, what if we got together tomorrow to record? So we spent 2 days together and it was just awesome. You're going to love him. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 77 of the About to Break podcast, my conversation with Charles Peachock. Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes. And this week I am joined by the incredible Charles Peachock.
Hello. Thanks for having me on, Taylor.
Thank you for having me in your wonderful home.
Twice, 2 days in a row, actually.
This is a first for the podcast. So we're like 75, 76 episodes in. This is the first time that we got together to record, had such a good time geeking out and eating Thai food and talking about show stuff that we said, what if we get together tomorrow and actually do the podcast?
Yeah, we were kind of worn out. We just talked. We actually talked too much. We were like, we're exhausted, man. Right. It was like so much energy is flowing between the two of us that we got nothing left. So let's save it.
I know. I mean, I love not only that we're both performers full time, but we are both kind of tech geeks when it comes to show control, which we'll get into and all of that.
Yep.
But we got so into the woods about how you can do cool things in your show.
Yeah, man, it's amazing what's out there, and yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. I love talking about it.
Well, before we get into that, I want to get into the Charles story.
All right.
And we are right now. Currently, we're in Orlando, Florida, where you live, where you reside.
Yes, I do. I moved here 3 years ago. It was a very smart move. It's been wonderful. So many great entertainers and opportunities, and I do a lot of work with Disney cruises, so they're right in my backyard, and tons of corporate events. It's still they're pouring through here. So
how nice is that to be able to just wake up the day you have a cruise and just drive to the or take an Uber to the,
and then a corporate is like I wake up in my own bed and I go to sleep in my own bed, and
that's the dream, man.
It's pretty it's pretty amazing.
It's funny. I think a lot of people, you probably get this. A lot of people see like the travel side and they go, "Wow, it must be so exotic traveling for work." But oftentimes, especially if you're flying to like a corporate gig, you're just on an airplane, a hotel, the venue, and then back to the hotel and back to the airplane.
It is. I try actually to hang out a little bit because, after the show, there's usually like the hotel bar that everybody goes
right,
to.
Yeah.
I just want to get a little human interaction. You know what I mean? So I sit and the people get to meet you a little bit more after the show.
Yeah.
So that's always not a bad thing. So that's my one piece of human interaction besides tech rehearsals. Basically everything else, it's like I'm a robot.
Well, and on cruises, I haven't done any cruise for performance, okay. But I've been on a few. But the story I hear is that, especially if you're performing in the middle of the week, the first couple of days you don't exist, mm-hmm. And then after that, it's like everyone knows you.
It's like you live in the lobby of your theater after your show.
That's hilarious. It's like a 4-day meet and greet.
I will say it does kind of taper off. It's amazing the retention people, or the lack of retention, I should say, people have. Like the night of your show, it's like everybody recognizes you. Then the day after, about 50% of the people recognize you. Then the second day after, about 20. It just starts tapering off. People just stop remembering and putting it all together, which is fine.
How many times has this happened where like a family member will be like, "Oh, we went on a cruise, or we went to Vegas and we saw this show and it was great and he did this and this," and you're like, "What was his name?"
Yeah. No, it's like people will be like, "No, I saw you on Carnival," and I've never worked for Carnival in my life. I'll even tell them that, and they'll be like, "No, it was you," and I'm just thinking, all right, we're done. I'm done tone to convince you.
At a certain point, you're just like, "Oh, that was so fun. That I remember that.
It was great. We got wasted. I totally forgot."
I did a show once. I got a call for a corporate event in Scottsdale, and they said, "I got your name from our CEO, and she just had the greatest time when you did this, this, and this. And I'm like, really? And I started to do the thing of like, I think you might have me confused with someone. She's like, nope. She was adamant it was you.
They don't want to be wrong.
I flew out. I did the show. It was like in November for like their anniversary of their company. And I did the show. And it went great. And the CEO comes up to me and says, it's so great getting to see you again. I remember when we were at, and tells me the event. And I finally was just like, whatever. They had me come back the next month. I still was not the guy. I feel bad, whoever's gig I took. It's an interesting world.
It is.
So how did you get involved? Because, you do a lot of different things, and you're also played drums, and you have this business that we'll talk about with helping other performers in their show control. But you primarily, your show is based around juggling.
Well, yeah, that's definitely how I got my start. Actually, I started off in magic when I was about 8.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did, and I still do a lot of card work and things like that. So basically, I was doing that. And I think everybody gets into performing for some kind of need for attention or approval.
Yes.
We're all so desperate.
We're all so broken.
Yeah, we are. So
it's not normal to want to get up on stage in front of a couple thousand
people. Look at
people.
me. Hey, watch me be silly. All right. So I did that when I was young. And so I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think I did one show on stage and it went fine.
Okay.
And actually, my mom remarked, because I was very quiet, I'm very introverted. I think I still have an introverted personality.
Okay.
A lot of artists do. But you live a boring life if you don't learn to
Right.
work outside of that. And on stage, you definitely can't present that side. So it's almost like a medium that you can have some kind of outlet in and, express yourself.
Did you grow up in Ohio?
I did. I grew up in Ohio, and my parents owned a record store, actually, which was a really alternative business for them to be having. So it was cool. I made me learn that I don't really have to work within the rules of everybody else. So
That's great.
And they encouraged me to do it because everybody told them that they can't, own a record store and do this business because all their family were just blue collar workers that had to go to a job. And human nature, it's kind of sad. Part of it is people don't want to see you rise above them a lot of times. It depends on what your circle is, but that definitely happens a lot. So anyway, I'm doing magic. And then my brother starts juggling. He always could juggle just 3, but he joined a juggling club. And he started to get pretty good. He's putting in a lot of time with it. And then I was like, well, listen, I can't have him doing something I can't at least do.
Was this your older brother or
middle? I was the baby.
Right.
So basically he was the middle one and he was starting to do this. And I was like, I just want to be able to. So if somebody says, can you juggle? I'd be like, yeah. Okay. I got
sure,
this.
Yeah.
So
no big deal.
This is no big deal. I don't know why he's doing it. Spending all this time.
Card trick?
Yeah, exactly. So I got into it. And I got hooked, man. It was just I really like the fact that, you could just really woodshed, and just practice and practice. You didn't have to buy anything. You didn't have to do anything. It was just how much sweat equity you put into it,
Right. And
I enjoyed that. I'm a very much, delayed gratification. I don't mind putting in results and waiting and honing something. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And the reward is that much bigger, I think.
And you can see the potential of something when it's not,
right.
It starts off small, but you're like, oh, this could actually be a skill I can use.
Yeah. So I really I ate, breathed, and slept that art form.
At that point, did you just quit, give up on the magic stuff? You were
I never really heavily pursued it. It was just this is a neat skill to have to interact and to get attention when needed. But no, that wasn't my life. Juggling was my life. I ate, breathed, and slept it for a decade.
At first, were you... the thing that stands out to me initially is that you can juggle and entertain people without having to say anything. And, as you build the show and continue to make that a career, you definitely need to work on those skills. But was that a little bit easier for you than having to approach someone and say, pick a card?
Well, here's the thing. When I was starting to do juggling, all I saw myself, the end game for me was an 8-minute spot, on a Vegas stage.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That was the dream.
Yeah.
And
a lot of guys were making a career out of that at the time.
Especially back then. And then I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to do comedy. I didn't want to do all this anything else. I just wanted to do hardcore skill, and people applaud me for it. That's all I wanted. And then as you progress and you dabble with comedy and you start doing this thing and you see the value it brings people. We're doing this because we want to feel a sense of purpose, and we want to fulfill an audience. And if our only way of doing it is being a technical juggler at first, and that's all we pursue.
Yep.
Once we start seeing the benefits of making an audience laugh and connecting and all these things like that, now all of a sudden, a lot of people's priorities will shift, and mine did too.
Right.
And so I started looking at the whole experience. I mean, I still really do like the fact that I can utilize my technique that I've used. It's not, I don't table it. It definitely is a pillar of my show. I want to do some very difficult juggling, but then you start layering it with production and comedy and all these other things and artistic moments. Like then it really starts to become a multifaceted, like full on experience.
Right. Had you seen, so you started getting into it because your brother was learning to juggle. Do you remember the first time you saw a professional juggling show?
That's a really good question. I remember on Sesame Street when I was
Yes,
2,
buddy.
with three. I have a weird mind, like it like remembers things at a very early age. I'll freak people out. I'll tell them
You're
about,
like, I was swimming around.
and no, it'd be like, and my mom would be like, "How did you remember that?" Like, you're like, you were only 3, or like, I'll totally remember the whole layout of my kindergarten class and like where things were, and freak my friends out. So my mind works a little bit differently that way. So I do remember seeing a juggling team on Sesame Street. I don't know if it was Gentlemen Jugglers or what their names were, but I remember the club passing and they did 6 and 7, and I was enthralled, but I never really thought about it. But I look back at that moment and the fact that I remembered it and the fact that it was so impressive to me, obviously it was something that I was born to be interested in.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool, man. It's funny how those things, you have those moments that kind of go dormant and then you recall them and go, wow, I wonder if that's why when, your brother started doing it, you were like, oh, that's the thing I remember.
But yeah, so I went ahead and I pursued I first did just strolling juggling, just non-talking things and everything like that. Then you start to morph more and more.
Just for different like events or?
Yeah. And hey man, when you're like, in high school and you're making like $75 an hour.
Oh yeah.
Like, your friends are like, say what?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And so it was cool. But then I, graduated to doing more stage stuff. And now that's all I do is stage work.
So when you were in high school doing these gigs, at that point, had you already decided this was your
14 years old?
Yeah, you knew this was the path.
If I had to sleep in a car and eat out of a dumpster, well, that was going to be it, man. And that's really what it takes, I really believe.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
People that have one foot like in the art and one foot in like, well, I'm going to get my degree just in case. Like you're already 8 steps behind because you're giving yourself an out. And if you don't give yourself an out, you're forced to make it happen. Yeah. And I really believe that. And I've seen so many really successful people take that approach. Very few people have had less than a do or die to make it in this business.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Prince was a great example. Like he used to be a janitor at the studio and he would trade cleaning garbage and scrubbing toilets for studio time so he could record his album.
It's wild, man.
You do whatever it takes.
My buddy he's a drummer. He plays for the country artist Maren Morris right now. Okay. And he and I were talking and he calls it the glorious curse. Because it's this thing of, he's like, if someone came up to me and said, do you want to make $150,000 sitting behind this desk? Or do you want to make $20,000 touring as a drummer? He's like, yeah, I'm going to play the drums. It
becomes a no-brainer, but it's hard for people to see it. But then once it comes back to the same mentality that I was talking about rising above, people don't want to see you working outside of the laws that are set before them.
That's interesting.
They really don't like it. That's why people were like, they say snide remarks after your show, like, "Oh, you can make a living doing that."
I am shocked that that's still a thing.
It's because such a common thing for me.
It's interesting because we are now in a day and age where there are people who put YouTube videos out and make $3 million a year. And so you almost think, when are people going to realize? I'm shocked that you can make a living being a guy who does taxes. Right. I'm shocked that you can, once a year. You're really busy.
Or be a Santa Claus.
Yeah. Whatever it is. I'm just amazed that but people come up to you after the show, and it's funny when they come up, they're usually like, that was the best show we've seen. That was so fun. What do you do for a living? So do you get like a free cruise? In exchange?
Where do you have to sleep in the bottom of the ship and run bingo?
Yeah. No. Did you make the sandwiches?
No, I got a better room than you.
Right. It's not a hobby. It is a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
And we were joking yesterday about, I think both magic and juggling have this kind of, people don't know that you can do it professionally. That, you know, they just think about, oh, that's fun. You do that, you know, like.
No, it's great. And I mean, the other thing that I will say about, you know, finding my passion when I was so young, I was really lucky, man. It's, you know, we have such limited time. And so many people waste years and decades, you know, and going down the wrong paths.
Yeah.
And one was just laid out before me, and it was just so clear. So I'll always be grateful for that.
That's so cool, man. And that you started so young and put the work in.
Yep.
You know, I mean, same thing goes with music. There's a lot of people who say, oh, I wish I could play guitar like you. It's like, well, I couldn't do this before. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what? There's also something that is, we'll talk about like natural aptitude. Like there are some people who be like, especially comes to juggling, people are like, I can't do that. They just think that you're born with this, you know?
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I was in the womb, like bouncing balls, like off of my mom's uterus.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. That was me. No, I mean, it didn't come to me in my sleep. Now, some people also say, well, you have a natural ability. I really don't think that it really is. Natural ability is as much of a factor as people think it is in their mind.
Yeah.
I think what it is your mental approach.
Okay.
Your immersion and focus of what you're doing.
Right.
And your attitude when you come into it, like you can do it, you know, or not. And a prime example would be watch these kids, watch the Olympics, watch skateboarding, watch cardistry, watch anything. It just grows by leaps and bounds every 10 years.
Right.
And that is because they see that it's been done.
Right.
They're like, oh, this can be done. So that mental block is gone. And now all of a sudden a new window is opened up to get to the next level.
It's like, was it Roger Bannister who first broke the 4-minute mile? I think it was 4-minute mile. Like up until that time, people like doctors would say it's physically impossible for a human to do this. And then as soon as he did it, within like a year, a bunch of other people did it.
It is. It's so true. And my nephew Cameron, who's on a swimming scholarship for college, you know, in high school, he looked at all the world records of like the 1920s and he could have beat all the world records.
Isn't that crazy?
At age like 15, 16.
Yeah. It's like if you look now, you're like, Babe Ruth wasn't that great. Plus, it was just a bunch of chubby white guys that were allowed to play then, and it's not really.
Indeed, the standards were different,
right? How cool is it though that you, as a young child, had this desire of like, I think I want to do this, but then you just started doing it. How many people are, you know, adults now and have for years been, I really think I want to do that, and just don't ever start?
Well, fear rules them, and I mean, I think it only comes down to like you've experienced that when you move past that fear. And it's life experience, I think, you know, and if you have a couple good successes early on that you take a chance and it pays off, then you'll start to go in that direction with your decisions. Other people, don't have those experiences, and also their home life. Like, what are they taught by their parents? You know, are they taught, no, just stay safe, survive.
Yeah.
You know, just don't take chances, don't take risks. And so, you know, when those opportunities come in front of them, they just look way too huge to ever take on for somebody who just has success with it time and time again. And you realize that this is the fate favors it bold because it's hard to do. And but it's not, you know, it's like, you just got to do it. And, I think I got off track there. You'll probably have to edit all that.
No, it's fantastic.
Rambling out, but, basically, it's our life experience basically that dictates, and our upbringing that dictates whether we like to take chances or whether we see the value in taking chances.
So, I mean, it had to be cool for you to see your parents running a record shop when other people's parents were.
It was hard. It was hard because when you're a kid, you don't see these things because it's your life already.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And once you grow up and you look outside of it, you realize how unique it was. And you would hear it all the time at school, like, oh, it's so cool. Like, and I'm just like, what? I don't get it. Like,
so what?
So what? But
like my kids, it's normal that their dad's a magician. That's weird.
Right?
That's super weird. But I think, I mean, but it had to at the same time show you, just like you weren't surprised that they did that, and other people thought it was cool. It by the very nature of you growing up in a house like that, it kind of eliminated some of the fear of, well, that's not possible.
Yeah, and rather than somebody coming home from a 9 to 5 job and complaining about their boss and everything like that, that's a totally different dynamic as somebody grows up with,
right?
And a totally different set of mindset,
Right. There is, I mean, anyone who listens to this show on a regular basis knows that I think every performer deals with the the ups and downs of the business and the feast or famine seasons of shows and things like that. I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to never do the thing that they're passionate about because they want security. And yet, how many people do you know that are bankers that are scared to death that they're going to lose their job, or they work for, the electric company, and they're like, what if today I tick the boss off and I don't have a gig tomorrow?
A good buddy of ours, Jason Allen, he basically, his dad really didn't like the fact that he was going down the magic road. And he said, you need to get a really good, steady job like I have. And he had this job for like 20, 30 years or whatever. And finally, when Jason kind of made the decision, he told his dad, like, this is it. No, I'm taking this path.
Yeah.
His dad's like, well, you'll regret it. And then 3 weeks later, his dad got laid off.
Wow.
So,
it's a different world.
Yeah, it is. And you're limited in your growth, when you're working under, most of the time when you're working under somebody else's model, it's not, living this life, living the life we live,
right.
There's no way we could imagine doing it any other way.
Yeah.
It just seems so obvious that this is the only way to live your life.
It's so wild. I mean, I had a job for a number of years where I realized I'm using all the talent and energy and time that I have to make someone else's dream come true.
That's true.
And what if I just said, okay, I'm going to take that same amount of energy and invest it in my, my career and my family and that kind of thing. Yeah. It's a huge difference.
It is.
It doesn't mean there's not days where you're like, man, it'd be nice to be a dentist.
I've had some people. I've had some people like go and say, okay, listen, if I wasn't on stage anymore, like it wouldn't be the end of the world. Or some people that are just like, I wouldn't mind some consistency. I wouldn't mind just being home with my family. And those are people that basically reached a pretty decent level,
right? And
they realize that there's not a whole lot else out there besides getting a name and starting a touring show.
Right.
And once you start to, your head just keeps bumping up against the ceiling about what's possible.
Right.
You lose motivation, and then you want something else, and another stream. And this might be part of the reason for my project. I feel like kind of topped out as far as like comedy jugglers. I'm not saying I'm the most popular or whatever, but I definitely, I'm up at a tier where I'm thinking there's not a whole lot else I could do except more like, higher end gigs.
Right.
And that's kind of it.
Well, it's funny is, and I was talking to someone recently about this. I think a lot of performers, at least in the magic world, they get to a certain level. There's like a level that you want to get to where you're like a middle class magician. Right. Like a lot of guys are like, man, if I'm doing a couple corporates a month and I got this side gig and every now and then I'll jump and do a theater show and I can make a certain amount of money, I'll be happy. Yeah. And I used to think that way until I started, paying our mortgage, doing magic. And then I went, well, now what?
Yeah.
I'm just going to do this for 30 years. I don't want to be I don't want to be 60 someday still doing, I want to do something different, Yeah. And that's part of why the podcast started was.
Absolutely.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the About to Break podcast. 3 quick ways that you can help us out here at About to Break. The first one is to go on iTunes and leave us a review. If you enjoy the program, please leave us a 5-star review. Big thank you to everyone who's already done that. If you haven't yet, please jump over to iTunes. You'll need your iTunes account information. But you can click on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Just leave us a 1 or 2 sentence little blurb there. Let people know what you like about it. That helps us out huge. Second way you can help us at About to Break is by becoming a producer. Our goal is to have 1,000 people giving at least $1 a month to help offset the cost of producing these shows. And it does take time. And it is a passion project. I will continue putting these out for free because I think it's a helpful conversation. But anything you can do to help us out by producing the show would be awesome. Go over to abouttobreakpodcast.com, click on Become a Producer, and see what that's all about. Last thing that you can do, and this one is also a real simple way of making a difference, is just sharing the podcast. All right, when you see it out there on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, go ahead and follow along and then share it with your friends. Let someone else know how much you liked it, because it sure does make a difference. All right, back to the program.
Well, I will say something else too. I'll interject about what you said earlier. I mean, magicians, I don't mean to be like jealous of magicians, but they have a higher ceiling.
Oh, buddy. Jugglers. Okay, I need to hear this
because listen. All right, name me a famous juggler. You know what I mean? Maybe we know some because we're in the circle.
Right.
I could ask 1,000 people on the street. No one can name a single juggler, and they could all name at least 3 to 5 magicians. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I've always talked about the cap on magicians, because I feel like even if you can name...
You don't know caps, man. Not until you're juggled.
But here's the thing, because magic kind of has a mentality like where even people that enjoy it, they think it's a little silly. And so I feel like even you name like the top magicians in the world, there's still a joke to most people.
We don't like to think that, though. No. We like to believe that's not the case.
I know.
You're shattering everybody's dreams.
No. I love magic, guys. No. I love it. I will always do it. But I also, in the bottom of my heart, go, maybe I'll be successful enough to work my way out of it.
I think besides the stigma that goes with the word juggler or juggling that we have to deal with, it's also the limit of material. Like, as a musician, as an actor, as a magician, as a comic, a stand-up comic, your body of work can just keep growing. You just write material and think of new ideas. Where juggling, there's a skill set that goes along with all those. Some of them take decades to learn that skill set. Some of them take a couple years. But it just can't do it.
Oh yeah, and the creativity required to stand apart. Because there's. I don't know. I mean, in magic, there's a limited number of impossibilities. You can't take something apart and put it back together.
Yeah, they say there's like 4 different things to do. Like, think of something somebody's thinking of, make something appear,
destroy
disappear,
something,
change something into something else.
But then even in that, as you change the object, making a person disappear versus making a card disappear or a coin, it feels like a totally different thing, even though the principle might be the same thing, just exaggerated. Right. But with juggling, it's like, you have to create these little vignettes that feel totally different, even though they all require you know what? Throwing and catching things.
That's a very good observation. There's I think one of the jugglers told me, like, there's only so many ways you could throw and catch something, man. It's just it, man. So no, it's true. And yeah, you're right. There's, I have a glow routine with balls, and then I have a regular ball routine, and then I have a bounce ball routine, and then I have a bounce piano ball routine. And I have and all of them pull from the same skill set in some way or another.
Well, the irony of it though, is that those are all completely different skill. Like, yes, you're throwing and catching, but bouncing,
that is a little bit
different than
it gives somebody who can juggle 5 balls, and you give somebody who can juggle 3, and they each have to learn how to bounce 5 on the floor. The guy who can already juggle will get it much quicker because they're just connected a little bit better.
Right. Okay. I recently saw Charlie Fry at the castle. Great. I had never seen him live, and I've only seen like little short clips. I watched him. I was in the parlor the week he was working the Palace with Mark and Ginger. That guy works so hard. Yeah. I mean, I'm just sitting there going, magicians have it so easy.
And I mean, he's just, whatever skill set he gets into, he just goes so deep into it. And people don't know this, but he's just so amazingly talented, like, in everything. He's actually a great artist. Sketcher. Like, there was somebody, I think there's a story where there was some crime that happened, and he basically the sketch artist sketch? They were like, let's get you and get a sketch artist. He's like, no, I'll just draw him, and he drew the guy and they found him.
Oh, he saw a guy commit a crime, and they were trying to and he's just like, here's what he looks like, and they found him. That's terrific. I was laughing watching them perform, not laughing, but I was noticing. I feel like magicians can do something and people go, wow. And it's not even that difficult. Like, a lot of things are difficult, but it's amazing to me that an invisible deck that takes zero skill whatsoever can get a standing ovation. Yep. And then sometimes you see someone like Charlie just killing it, and for whatever reason, one person in the audience is like, I've seen it before. I'm like, you have never seen this. No one's ever done this. Get on your feet, man.
It really doesn't matter how much work it took or how much value it has to you. It has a totally different value to an audience. And you just have to realize that as a performer. And you can be an artist. You can be like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do this anyway, or I'm going to present myself in front of my peers only, or whatever it is. Or you can just be like, you know what? I'm here for them.
Yeah.
I try and walk a line where I can be happy for myself that I'm really, bringing something that I've worked my life for, and that I'll be respected by if a juggler came to my show, they would still respect my show. I try and walk that line. And also bookers, people who've seen it all, when you come in and just do what everybody does, they like, okay, well, we got the reaction, but they're just not compelled as much to book you as if you're really, raising your game and raising the bar and doing something different and working on a higher level.
That was one of the things I noticed watching your demo reels is that, apart from the fact that you have, like, some guys will have a 2-second clip of them on America's Got Talent, you have like 3 or 4 killer routines on there.
Yeah. That was quite a journey, actually. It was, the show hates jugglers, like, really does. It's the lowest form of entertainment on that show. And that show usually reflects pop culture. So really it is the lowest entertainment. I never wanted to do the show. They would push me for a couple years. And I was just like, I'm good. I have a career, all that. And then I actually got a manager briefly, and she recommended that I do it because it's just like, you know what, man, you may be quote unquote known in the juggling world, but you're not known in the real world. And if things go bad, it's not going to damage your career because you aren't a name in the real world. And so she's like, it's just your pride's going to take a hit. Just look at it like a business decision, And that's what that was a story I told myself too. And so that's what I did. And I just try to show up big and play big and think bigger than people have done on that show. And I played really nice with everybody, and I knew the game, I had a lot of friends that have been in it and everything like that. And I was in a year where, as the years are progressing, as it's getting more and more set up, like more and more pre-selected. Oh yeah. It was already scripted as it was, but now it's just like really starting to get, all scripted and all, everybody's a professional there. Yeah. And asked and sometimes paid to be on the show. That just never happened when I was on it 6 years ago. Right. So I was working under that model, what they call the dark times. The dark times. I've been
with the scary contracts and that.
Yeah. So anyway, I go on there, and I was like you said, I just wanted a clip. I was like, thinking, okay, well, I'll get on. I'll get a little quote to put on my reel, whatever. Right. And I thought that was going to be the end of it, and then it was like, no, and then next one shows up, and then the next one, and the next one. So it just kind of kept going, and each time I was like, you can't hold back. You can't be like, oh, well, I'm going to save my killer bit.
I'm going to save the good stuff. You got to go big.
You got to just go for it.
Because you don't know if there's going to be a next round. So you have to get.
And you don't want to think to yourself, I shouldn't have held back. Damn it. And then it also forces you to up what that, like, let's say you got like a level 10 bit that you're holding back. No, put the level 10 up and you will find a way. If you're good, if you're smart, you'll find a way to do a level 15 next.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. And then you can get to a certain point where once people are connected to you as a person, then, like, I think Matt Franco, who won, I think when he won, he did like a card trick at the end or something. Like
it was Cups and Balls, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it was a storytelling. No, it's really up to the show's writers how to frame you. And whether they're going to make you somebody who's cocky, or if they're going to make you all American, favorite. Right. So, or if they're going to show you crying on camera a lot and make everybody emotionally vote for you, like whatever they decide to frame you, because it's not you. You literally don't talk except for the judges' comments.
It's weird, man. And it's weird because, like,
you want to put out there for you.
Even when you, like, I've had so many friends who have gone and filmed and they're like, it was great, it's going to be awesome. And then you watch the show and you go, somehow they were able to totally edit this. Yeah. I mean, I've had friends who have killed standing ovation and then they go to the second round. It doesn't go so well. They never show the first one. Right. They just show some off comments.
It's a very, very common story. And a lot of people end up on the cutting room floor. I'd say 70 to 80% of the acts that I auditioned with, because, we do 2 days and we do back in when I was doing, I don't know what the formula is now, but back when I did it, it was 2 days and 2 load-ins per day. So it was the Verizon Center in Houston. So that held about 4,500 or 5,000.
Okay.
So they had 4 times they had to fill that up over.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was nuts. And I think how many acts go up, like 20 or more each time. And how many acts show up on the episode? 12,
yeah.
Something like that out of,
it's wild, man.
Out of 80 acts that set foot on that stage in front of judges. So even if you make it to the judges table, you don't necessarily, and most likely won't show up.
Yeah. Well, I think, you had the benefit too, because I've also heard horror stories of someone who's got they've spent a long time putting together one act and it's killer.
Yeah.
And then they have to go next week. They got to do something that they've never.
You can do it, And
but you had the benefit of having done this for years and having hours of material that you can pull from.
Well, not necessarily. It's and you have to frame it within 90 seconds and do all this stuff. Magicians have way deeper pockets, and so as singers, I'm not even going to talk about, because all they have to do is just sing another song.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough as a juggler. It really is, because, you have that one really killer idea or set, and then all of a sudden you got to do something completely different. And it's high pressure. Jugglers who are really good go on there, and it's like guys who never drop.
Right.
Like Victor Key, who's one of those pre-selected people, he had a drop every other set, but of course the judges always stood up or something like that, because he was a golden boy from Cirque. And so that was a different scenario. So it's a pressure that you can't, you've never been under as a juggler. Even in world competitions and stuff, it wasn't like anything like that show.
That's crazy. You did world competitions?
Yeah. And in 97, I won the world championships.
Oh my goodness, man. That's amazing. What was that like?
It was great. It was my brass ring that I was always shooting for when I was woodshedding, when I was practicing so much. That was my goal, and I was hanging around with the other competitors, and that was it. That was the dream, was to win that. You know? And conventions were like where my life centered around when I was 12 to 20. It was like that was the whole year. I was building up to that, the competitions and going there and all that stuff like that. And I remember just thinking to myself, I would never miss a convention in my life, But now that you're a touring professional and you get all the gratification you need from that, I do like going to conventions. And last time I went, I actually really enjoyed myself. And I would like to, but it's not the end all be all like it used to be when I was young.
Well, see, and that's a healthy mentality to have. I think in magic, a lot of guys, they make a career out of trying to win awards and, doing convention acts and things like that, which is great for what it is. But there is that balance of, you got to perform for real people.
There are some people that, and we talked about them last time, that are internet sensations that really don't have a solid performing career, but that's okay.
Right.
I'm not, that's a totally different venue and a different type.
Yeah.
And you could pull a guy from stage and he would flub on YouTube. It's just, they're just two different animals.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think you just got to know your audience and what you want to do. And that's a big question, is what do you want to do?
Right.
Cause I remember, you mentioned wanting to have an 8-minute spot in Vegas. When I was a kid, it was like World's Greatest Magic, and everybody was just Vegas show is the goal.
Yeah.
And now I think that's not where I want to do.
And so many people, that's the compliment they want to give you after your show. Oh, you should be in Vegas. And it's just before I was on America's Got Talent, that was the thing. It was you should be on America's Got Talent.
Right.
It's the new Ed Sullivan show. It's the new Tonight Show. It's a totally different dynamic.
Right.
But that's where you go to get vetted.
Yeah.
It used to be Ed Sullivan, then it was Johnny Carson, then it was Jay Leno and Letterman, and now it's AGT.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, for magicians, it's Fool Us. Me and Nick Paul and Eric Buss, I think we are the, I think Nick Paul, Eric Buss, and I are the 3 working professionals that have never been on that show. like
Well,
season
I think
27.
Nick is to make an appearance.
I think so. Yeah.
I think I've heard rumors.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
rumors.
I've got this great arrangement where every couple of months they ask me to send in a tape, and I send it, and then I don't ever do it.
And I know, I mean, the show, it does. It actually, it's good acknowledgement of, especially within the magic community.
Right.
And with bookers who understand what that is. And it is a national spot. I don't want to take anything away from it. But NBC, like,
Oh yeah.
primetime show is a totally different animal. And now the ratings they're really adapting, though. I will give them credit, because I was thinking to myself, well, this show is going to be off the air once TV goes the way of the dinosaur, which it is rapidly going.
Yeah.
Network TV, I mean cable TV. But they're adapting, man. They're getting their traction from Facebook advertising and Facebook clips. Like some of those clips go into like the 200 millions.
It's crazy.
And they're getting ad space from that rather than through NBC and through the cable networks.
Right.
So ratings aren't as important because they're getting traction elsewhere.
That's true.
So it's going to stay alive in one form or another, I think.
When, I mean, not only the one thing I was going to say too about it is watching your footage. It's killer footage. It's probably the best footage you can get.
I could not imagine like owning something like that.
Isn't that nuts?
Like I used to be jealous of the guy that had like the VHS tape of him on Star Search that was like all grainy.
Right?
And I was like, man, if only I had that,
you
something
could see
like
the,
that.
You could see the tracking from the old VHS. Yeah, but
I remember being jealous of that.
What's killer too is it shows the pieces that you chose to do on there. It's so different for a booker to look at that. It's like, oh, this, even if they've seen a juggler before, I haven't seen anyone take his glowing face off and throw it in the air.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
the only thing I do worry about is like, there's a lot of fire in it, and no venue wants that and everything like that. But other than that, yeah, that reel has served me in many ways. I had to go through hell and back to get it. Yeah, but it was worth it.
Has it helped from in the actual performance, when the audience knows that you have appeared on America, does that help going out? Like,
this is great. So I'll tell you about the effects that it has on an audience.
Okay.
So
let me hear it.
Basically, actually I've had times where we couldn't have a video feed, or the video feed broke or something like that. And
because you do a pre-roll, like
normally I do a pre-roll. So, and when I hit the stage, it's like this huge round of applause. I haven't done anything, and I'm already set up for success.
That's great.
It's amazing. It's so great. But when I don't have it, I feel like, oh, I'm just cheating now. You know what I mean? But then even when I don't have it, I don't get that initial response at the beginning, but I get them at the end. Yeah. But no matter what, here is a big difference. When I do like de-greets and like, handshaking and pictures and all that stuff like that, even if I still get a standing ovation, like on the real show, and the one I showed the AGT on, and the one I didn't, even though I get the same audience reaction after the show, my value is completely different. After the show, people are like, "Oh yeah, hey, great show, blah blah blah." But once I show the AGT stuff after the show, so many pictures, like so
Isn't
many
that
autographs,
crazy?
so many things like that. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. So the perception is obviously very much affected. And the value I hold to them.
Oh, that's wild.
But it's nice to know the show can stand on its own, and it has. It stood on its own years before America's Got Talent. But yeah, it does take it up to the next level, because it's just like people are just like, oh, he's famous,
right? Famous, such a weird thing like that too, where it's like
perception's reality. Man.
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. Well, we were yesterday when we were supposed to do the podcast. Yeah, the reason we didn't is we started talking about this other project that you created. What was it, like 4 years ago now?
3 years ago. It's almost at the anniversary right now. Actually,
it's only been 3 years.
It has only been 3 years.
So people who listen to this show have heard me talk about. Audio Ape because it's such a game changer for me as a performer. You talk about sometimes you have the pre-roll video and sometimes you don't. The truth is sometimes you walk into a venue and they've got a full production crew and lights and sound, and sometimes you walk in and you got the hotel banquet PA guy who doesn't know what a microphone cable is.
Right. No, I understand that. And you know what? So what we do is we have a remote control system that basically controls all your audio cues. We have another system too, but let's just keep focused on the audio system, which just works with an iPad. You basically plug your iPad in, and there's an amazing app out there. There's a couple of them out there, Show Cues and Go Button. One Track used to be out there. I think some people are still using it. And so basically you plug in our remote system, and it's like an RF, super high powered, like it'll never lose the connection. They're always in lockstep. So, and the remote's designed to be hidden and be able to feel it and be able to know you hit the button with like a snap, and all these little things that need to be there for us have been implemented into this product.
It's crazy to me how when I'm in an environment, I mean, usually I'm in a high production environment, but when I do like a sales meeting and they know that there's no sound man,
right?
They know there's no production crew, and all they see is a microphone. And during the show, music's firing off at the right moment.
They're like, "You're so perfectly scripted."
Yeah, I've had so many people go, I don't know how you pulled that off. It seems so improvised, but the fact that you had it all timed to like, they think you have this like hour-long soundtrack that fades in and out.
It's a 20 minute blank pause.
Yeah.
That just kicks in just at the right time.
Just the right moment.
It's great. And it, you know, you talked about sometimes you don't have that high production. Sometimes you don't have all these resources, but I'll tell you what, man, even if you do, and I work on Disney Cruise Lines a lot, and they have an amazing tech team of 8 people that are some of the best, man, because Disney, they're also producing Disney shows there, and they're running the Disney shows. And those people are very highly educated and really good at their job. And I don't use them. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're incapable. But it's just a simple fact is nobody knows your show as well as you do.
Yes.
And you can course correct during the show, and there'll never be a cue missed. And and people, they think they're adding an extra step by putting a remote into the show when really they're removing 5 other steps.
Right.
And it's just this one key step that you implement into the show. Then all this other stuff goes away, like tech rehearsals, miscues, all these things like that. And being able to switch your show right before you go on stage, all cue sheets, all that stuff disappears.
Yeah.
Those 5 steps are gone. And you added 1 step of putting this remote in.
The professional, like the more professional the sound engineer is, the more they value what you're doing because they get it.
Yes.
And you've got to realize too, whether you're performing on a cruise ship, you're one of 7 to 10 different performances that are going to happen that week that they've got to already worry about.
Right.
So for you to come in and be a professional and say, look, I've already got this covered.
Right. You have value
is a
there.
relief. Oh, totally.
And the production manager puts in their report.
Yep.
On the acts, and that goes to the head office.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have a perfect show and nobody needed to lift a finger, then all of a sudden you are a golden boy.
Right.
And that's great. And so, I basically, even when I have these amazing resources, I don't use them because I would rather control the cues myself because it's such a stable system that I 100% trust it in any environment. I mean, there's times where, and Justino is a great magician who works there a lot. You know, he was in the pit, like 2 floors below the stage with like the steel door closed, and the laptop was like buried stage right, but he knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
And he fired the first cue, and then all of a sudden the pit's open and he comes up out of the thing and it just works. And once it proves itself to you, you know, you just start to not even think about it.
Yeah.
You just know it's going to be there for you all the time. And we understand that any system that is anything less is just unusable.
Yeah.
You can't have this thought in the back of your mind, oh, I got to worry about this, or will this happen during this show? Because we've taken it all out.
Yeah. Once there's performers that don't utilize music in their show.
Right.
And some of it is because of the fear of, well, I don't always have someone who can travel with me to play it. And, and then there's the other challenge of guys that do use it in their show and it becomes part of the performance. When you don't have it or a cue gets missed, it affects what your audience experiences.
Yeah, you want that seamless experience, and running your own show. And also once you start to run your own show, you start to realize, oh, I can do that. Like adding a sound effect or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like no matter how much you rehearse, you can't unless there's a touring guy with you and he knows your show frontwards and backwards, and he's still not going to do it as well as you do. So there'll be moments that the ideas will open up to you because you can now do it yourself because you're the one thinking and you're the one firing cues. Now,
there have been other systems that attempted to do similar things in the past. What made you decide I want to create my own?
Well, there was a little bit of a lull in the remote market. Kerry, the godfather of all this stuff, brilliant guy, and such a sweetheart. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet, and he did a great thing for the time. Yeah, and he used the technology he had, and he built something great. He ended up selling it, and it just didn't move a whole lot. It didn't change or anything, and everything else was just kind of staying static. And I was talking to people about, because I know the app developers, Carl, and I know him very well, that does show cues, and I know technology. I've built things for my show and custom electronics, and I have an R&D team that builds things that are beyond my capacity sometimes. And I've owned pinball machines and worked on them and serviced them. I know circuitry, so I have a little bit of knowledge and background on this stuff. So I was telling Carl, well, do this. You got to get this made. And he was just looking at me. He's like, why aren't you doing this? And I'm like, it doesn't even enter in my brain. You know what I mean? Like, it's so outside of my world that it just didn't occur to me. It doesn't seem like a logical thing to do. And it goes back to that taking chances thing. It's just all of a sudden that's a huge chance that I'm looking at it. It's a totally different animal. I don't even know what it is, what I mean? So, or how to approach it, or how to sell it, or how to make it, or how to mass produce it, or all these things that I didn't know.
Maybe a big ape.
And then I had a couple other people kind of encourage me too, to be like, no, this needs to be done, and you could be the guy, And then I went to my R&D team, and we did a proof of concept, and I gave them a budget, and they came back and they said, no, we can do this. And it ended up being way more difficult and way much more money and way much more time than we ever imagined.
Was there a moment when you were like, maybe this is
8 times? Like, there was like, I just threw my hands up. I was like, it's over. All right, I'm done. That's it.
We're calling this a learning lesson.
Yep, and that's it. I'm hanging it up. Whether it be a supply line kink or like something like a design flaw that and we never launched anything with a design flaw, but we build like 100 things, boards, and they each cost like $150, and now it's just like they all get scrapped, and the FCC shutting us down. We can't get past Apple, like just block after block.
And that's another thing too with your product is you went through the process to get it approved by the FCC, to get it approved by Apple.
The products out there, I don't know any of them that are really 100% legal.
Well, I forget what product it was at one point, because a few years ago, the government sold off a certain frequency.
Yeah.
Because I had a wireless mic that ran on that, whatever it was,
and
600. Yeah, and then it was like, oh, you can't use this mic anymore. It's been sold.
But I'll go back to all those problems and the things like feeling like this is it, we're over.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just me, and maybe I'm just like a bumbling newbie. But then I watched like a couple of videos. One of them, really good one from Elon Musk, and he was just like, when you start down an endeavor like this, it's mostly pain. Yeah. It's a lot of pain because all you see is the problems, and you just have to have a super high tolerance for problems and pain. Yeah. And that's really what it was for me. And I just had to get through it out the other side. Yep. But the whole time, we just always put the product first and the customer first. And I just wanted to have something that was built with passion and that I could be really proud of. Yeah. And that my fellow friends and performers are walking on stage. And that's really great when I get people. I thought, okay, well, this would be a fun side business. I didn't understand how fulfilling it would be to be, part of their lives and have an effect, such a positive effect on them.
Well, and to know on a firsthand experience as a performer, how much it helps you when you have the right tools.
That was another thing. Like, I'd used all the products out there for years. And I was a performer myself using them. So I'd seen all of them. I'd used most of them. Right. And I understood where all the holes were. And I needed those. I think there was a product that needed them all patched up. And I needed something that was a better solution, 100% solution.
The other thing too, and this is, you mentioned Kerry and what he did, which was great, but you have to stay up to date because technology nowadays is advancing,
exponentially.
With every new iOS update, it's like, okay, what do we got to do for this? And a new product came out. And so
I mean,
a lot of the solutions that were out there to me were great when they came out, but they just didn't catch up to integrate all these other systems that are now available.
No, I know. There's a lot of resources that just keep popping up. And there'll always be something that'll pop up and catch my attention. I'm like, ooh, we should implement. And I'm like, I really have to. The company's still not profitable after all this time and after all these sales.
And people are like, why is it so expensive?
I have to take my foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that, they're not going to buy a system and I'm going to have something new out in like a year and a half or something like that. This is pretty much a refined, done thing. The Audio Ape and even the Media Monkey, there's not a whole lot we're doing in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I want to tinker with it. I want to touch it. I want to change it. But when I look at the reviews, I'm like, it's done. We're done. And until something, major comes along that we want to change, we're not going to touch it. It's done. But yeah, I still do look at it and I'm like, oh, well, what if we did this? And it doesn't have to stop.
Well, where it is right now is so far advanced from anything I've seen. And I mentioned this to you yesterday. So I've been using Audio Ape now for several months in my show, and it was one of these things that literally from day one just worked. It was you even put on your website like it's plug and play, and I'm like, yeah. I was shocked because every other, and I've used all the other options that are available.
Kind of learning curve on
There's some sort of knacky thing that something.
What order you plug them in?
Right? Yeah. It's like, oh, it worked yesterday, great. Today, oh, I accidentally had this going this way. There is I've never been more confident in a system like this, and yet yesterday you were showing me because I had questions about the Media Monkey, which Audio Ape runs all of your sound for your show.
Your backing tracks is what we handle, and it can do backflips especially with the advanced software Go button. You literally can do anything you want. There are simpler apps out there, and most people only want that. But if you want a little extra, if you want to be able to do some neat tricks, Go button, there's nothing you can't do with audio tracks, I believe. It's
incredible, and I use it all the time. Media Monkey blew my freaking mind yesterday. I could not believe there was no end to what. Imagine a stage production with lights and sound and video playback and
robotic,
everything. Yeah. And imagine you as the guy on stage being able to control all of those things, and the audience has no idea that you're controlling it. That to me is just insane.
It really is. People really don't understand what is capable with that system, because it's hard to get your head around it, because it's so massive and expansive. And we didn't write the software. The software has been an industry standard. Well, now it's really an industry standard. It's been growing for a decade. And we work with that software, QLab, which Disney uses to run their production shows, which ran the opening ceremony in the Olympics, which runs rock concerts. Like this piece of software is unbelievable.
Right.
And it's hard to get your head around the fact that you can talk to a lighting board, run just straight DMX lights. You freaked out.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. I've used sound in my show, backing tracks for years.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting to get into bringing my own lighting.
Right.
And what you showed me was possible, because what's crazy is, you can run an entire theater of intelligent lights and all of this.
Right.
But the fact that you can plug and play DMX lighting control
with a USB port.
One port.
And then you just daisy chain all the lights together and you assign them, and then that's it. And you can automate everything, or you can have a button put for it. And one of the things, though, that was a big missing piece of the puzzle was the fact that it's a desktop console. You look at it and there's just lines like this is the next bit, this is the next bit. And it's made to be operated by a desktop operator.
Right.
We're used to being able to look over to the side of the stage or look somewhere and see a heads up display of our music user. Like that's, Virtual Soundman had a number, Carrie Paul, the MP3 Tech had the little LCD,
Right.
So everybody has something. We have like the iPad, full display for your audio cues. So that was missing on QLab, a way to be a confidence monitor, to be able to move around your playlist and know where you're at. So I promised myself we wouldn't do software. I'm like, I'm staying a hardware guy. I don't want to keep up with the operating systems. I don't want to do this. There's plenty of people that can do that, and are doing it. But there was a missing piece of software. And so we decided, okay, we need to do this. And it's almost like I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it for myself.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of these products like come to fruition. That's the nice thing about being the owner of the company. I get the products first. So this is it's called Lab Monkey, and it works with QLab, this giant that can run anything. And so what it does is basically through wireless Wi-Fi, it runs in lockstep with QLab. So basically, it shows your cue you're about to fire,
Yep.
or it'll show your cue you're about to fire and what you're going to fire underneath there. And it has show timers, everything you would want.
Oh, yeah.
An on stage monitor as a performer. And so basically, you have a real time. You have real time feedback, and I mean, you saw how responsive it was.
Oh, it's crazy
because the remote is RF and it has to talk to the computer, and then the computer has to display on the iPad. And you would think,
right,
okay, there's going to be a lag somewhere, but it's not even a quarter of a second.
No,
it's literally an eighth of a second or under. As soon as you push that button, you're seeing it on the iPad,
and across insane distances.
Right. So,
that's the part that I was blown away by, because I would brag before my previous system. I'd be like, yeah, you can go 100 feet away and it still works. And even then it'd be a little iffy. And this, with the smallest antenna, takes up no space in your carry-on or in your prop case.
Right.
And yet, I mean, you could be in the back of house and fire off something, and it just is instantaneous.
Right. So yeah, we're excited. We're actually going to be at Magic Live.
Yes.
So definitely come see us then. But aside from having a booth, we're going to be at Tannen's Magic. Aside from having a booth, we are going to be hosting a masterclass of QLab and the software, because there's just so much. And it's so powerful. Sometimes when you have too many options, it can be daunting. And so we're going to kind of take that away, and we're going to take you step by step and hold your hand. So we're going to be doing it offsite at a theater space, and it'll be on Thursday is the last day. Wednesday's the last day of Magic Live.
Wednesday's the last day, yep.
So we're going to be hosting it Thursday, so you don't have to worry about us competing with anything. Just stay an extra day. We're going to be in the afternoon, then you can go see a show at night and check it out then. Check out a show then, and just use your whole day to good effect, and then fly out one day late.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going over everything. It'll probably be about a 4-hour class, and we'll give you a license so you can use QLab for 24 hours during the class and a little bit afterward. We're going to have projectors and lighting and everything. So you're going to really you're going to really see how it all takes place. We're going to talk about cameras, how to be able to even use your iPhone, control lighting, either from a board or, like you said, like through one cable and one USB. We're going to talk about microphones, how to change the level of your microphone, add effects to your microphone, mute it. All that's cueable. You can either have it happen like to the music, or you can have it happen with a button push. And then, of course, music playback and video playback, that'll be on the table, of course. And then controlling outlets, being able to turn on a fan or a snow machine or just a light or a custom magic prop that you have. All you need is the outlet, and we can control that.
And this is why what you're doing with this masterclass is so important, is because even as we were talking yesterday, I would, like, an idea would pop up and I'd be like, oh, I wonder if I could do something like this for my show. And you're like, yeah, that's possible. And and here's how it works. And just being in a room with you and seeing a demo and being able to talk through these different options and ask questions is just invaluable.
Thank you. And another big point, big value that we're going to bring with this is, I'm only going to give you solutions that are for the self-contained, like, touring operator. You know, you can go out there and find a ton of information on QLab,
right? But
very little is applicable to us.
Yeah.
Because we need it to be rock solid. We need to be able to set it up quick. This is not an install. You need to be able to set it up quick and break it down quick.
Right.
The least amount of gear and the most flexibility. And so all my solutions, whether it be using a camera or controlling an outlet, all these things are the most reliable, compact,
simplified,
and bulletproof solutions. Yep. And I've gone down the hole and pulled out all these gems, and I will share them only in that masterclass.
It's so cool. Again, people who listen to this podcast, I don't pitch a lot of stuff. I said, if we're going to do this, we want to get the Charles story, but I want to talk about this because some of my breaking points as a performer have been when your stuff doesn't work and you're excited about an event and then the audio guy lets you down because he missed a cue. And this, to me, is like a critical thing for performers. So I'm also very excited because you've offered a free case to anyone who listens to the podcast that wants to.
Yeah. Just put in if you're thinking about Audio Ape, you want to get any of our systems, just throw in a case on checkout and just put in Audio Ape freebie.
Awesome.
And the coupon code, and we'll definitely let you travel in style.
That's so cool, man. How do people get more information about the masterclass? Is there a
I will be sending stuff out through Facebook and through my mailing list. So all you have to do is go on my website.
Yep.
And sign up for just put your name in the form on the bottom, and you will be mailed information about the masterclass. I'm not going to blast you. I'll send you a overview of it.
Yeah.
And if you want more information, then basically you opt in, and we will continue to feed you all the news and the topics that we're going to go over.
That's great, man. I will, if you guys are listening right now, click on the little wonderful picture we have of Charles there. It'll flip around and there will be a direct link so you can go straight to sign up for his newsletter to get more information about Audio Ape or Media Monkey. And how do people get more information about you if they want to see what you're doing? Or
CharlesPeachock.com. That's it, man.
Awesome, man.
That's the website. That's the performance website. So there's two sides of Charles. There's the pure performer, and then the show automator and show control guy.
So cool, man. So appreciate you sharing your story, and like you having the idea that you wanted to be a juggler and you actually started doing it. This whole idea with the show control stuff and the fact that you really put in the work is helping so many of us, and I'm just grateful for you, man. So thank you.
It's a pleasure to be on stage with all those guys, man, and yourself. Thank you so much, man.